Bridges are stronger when built from both sides.
Let's connect.
Let's connect. In the middle.
Hello and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. If you have parents, grandparents, or loved ones aged 65 or older, this is a show you will want to watch because today we're going to talk about how our senior citizens can be exploited or even abused. Our guests today are three people who work closely with our elderly population and are launching a creative program to help keep them safe. Thank goodness. Joining me now, I'm welcoming Detective Emily Irving from the Greensboro Police Department's Family Victims Unit, Ms. Catherine Johnson, who is the Director of the Guilford County Family Justice Center, and Ms. Carol Wright from Adult Protective Services. So welcome all of you to Building Bridges. What I'd like to do to start is to go around and ask you what it is you're doing that would associate with elder abuse.
So I, as the director of the Guilford County Family Justice Center, I coordinate our community's Elder Justice Committee. And that committee is comprised of law enforcement, social services, home health agencies, legal services, a variety of professionals, actually almost 75 in totality, who work monthly to talk about education, awareness, and outreach to address issues that seniors in our community are facing right here in Guilford County.
Wow. Now tell us about yours.
I'm a social worker with the Department of Social Services. I am in the Adult Protective Services unit, but I'm housed at the Family Justice Center. But whenever we get reports of adults being abused, neglected, or exploited, and they meet our criteria, then I actually go out to the homes or wherever the adult is and actually do an evaluation to determine if they are in need of protective services.
Okay, let's talk about yours, Detective.
Yes, ma'am. I am with the Family Victims Unit with the Greensboro Police Department. And our squad or unit of criminal investigations is housed at the Family Justice Center. And I investigate all crimes against family, and that includes abuse and fraud activities against our elders. And I'm also a member of the Elder Justice Committee that we began at the Family Justice Center. I also had a spot where I went around, I did a senior safety presentation around the city and around the county. So I have quite a lot of experience trying to educate and protect our elder residents.
So let me understand now what you mean when we say elderly abuse or senior citizens abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So elder abuse is a pretty broad definition, and so what we're talking about is financial exploitation, physical abuse, abuse by a caregiver, and also abuse by folks who target aging adults in our community.
Mm-hmm. Is that what your department is working on?
Yes, we actually get the reports. Anyone can call the Department of Social Services if they suspect any type of abuse, neglect, or exploitation on an adult, on a disabled adult. And like I said, we have 3 criteria that have to be met. And once that criteria is met, then we're assigned to different cases and we go over where the adult is and determine if the allegation is actually true and if that person is still in need of protection.
So do we have a lot of people in this situation? You know, I know seniors have a pretty tough time, you know, with living and spending money or that they don't have or whatever, but how prevalent is this?
It's very prevalent, and as society progresses and as our criminals become more savvy with electronics, it's actually becoming easier and easier, especially on the fraud aspect of taking abuse of our elder citizens. As far as the physical abuse, whatnot, unfortunately, that seems to be becoming more prevalent within families, and oftentimes it comes from a caregiver that may even work for an agency that the family has hired to help take care of their mother or father. But it also, unfortunately, oftentimes comes from family members that are there who have said they will take care of mom or dad or even their grandmother or grandfather.
The other thing I would add is it's a very underreported crime. So we don't know the full scope of elder abuse and neglect that happens within our community. And actually, statistically, it's reports that about 5% of people will disclose elder abuse and neglect. So while there are reports for fraud and credit card and identity theft and exploitation to both social services and Greensboro Police Department and folks coming into the Family Justice Center, we know this is a very silent crime.
Give me an example of what happens to someone. Someone who may be living alone, 70, 80 years old. What kind of things specifically happen to them?
So it can be a large variety, but for example, it could be someone who's living at home and there's a storm and causes some damage to the roof, for example, and a savvy criminal, and we use that word because people target seniors who live independently, maybe seem a little bit more isolated, but also seem to have resources. They would go and say, hey, looks like you need a little roof repair, and that small roof repair, which may be a legitimate repair needed, and a couple $100 turns into a $25,000 problem.
Oh my goodness.
Where people are exploited and really bullied into paying more for something that they know the contract continues to change over time. And so these types of criminals living right here in our community really manipulate people and use pressure and fear tactics to control people who get themselves in situations. And it may start out as a legitimate need that is exploited, as the word we use.
Exactly.
So who is abusing? You said caregivers and family members. Are they younger people? They're not seniors that are doing the senior abuse. Is that right?
Right. Most of them that we see are family members. I've seen a lot of people that may previously have been in a facility, a nursing home or an assisted living facility, and their child or some other family member was truly dependent on that person's income, and so they take them out of the facility. And most adults do not want to be in a facility, they want to be at home. So they take them out with, stating that they're going to assist them and make sure they're taken care of, but they don't have the skill set to provide the needs that they have. So we see a lot of that.
So if you had to pick one target of something people do to seniors, what would it be?
Probably the most, I say, popular crime or course of action. I would have to say it would involve some sort of financial gain from the party that is targeting the senior. And again, whether that is a family member or a hired caregiver, or whether it's the tree trimming service, or whether it's someone calling and saying, you missed a federal court subpoena. You owe...
Don't scare me to death.
You owe...
Yeah.
Correct,
Right.
correct. You owe $5,000. If you don't pay this $5,000, you're going to be arrested. Well, that doesn't happen. You don't... If you miss your federal court subpoena, somebody's going to come knocking on your door and say, Ms. Hughes, did you receive this? But what happens is, with the fear, we see a lot of our seniors become afraid, and sometimes they doubt themselves or they don't trust themselves. And Catherine said it earlier, less than 5% are reported. A lot of that has to do with the senior being afraid to report it because they don't want to appear unable to still manage their own affairs. And the first person that is going to question their affairs are their children or their other family members.
Oh, that's that's hard because if your daughter comes to you and says you're not doing right and I need to take over, I think you'd fight that, wouldn't you?
Sure. I think that's a really common response that seniors have. We also see quite a bit of mail and internet scams. We'll go out and do community education and we'll say, who here has heard of the grandparent scam? And almost every person in the room.
What is the grandparent scam?
So the grandparent scam, I'm going to let Emily tell us because she tells it so well.
Okay. You're speaking to a grandmother here now.
Okay. Say you have a grandchild named Joey. Okay, it just came to my head. All right, the way the grandparent scam works is if I'm the scammer, I'm going to call you, and oftentimes I'm just dialing numbers, just hoping to hit the right person. So you answer the phone, and I'll say, Grandma, it's me. Well, actually, in this case, it'll be Emily. But I'll say, Grandma, it's me. And you'll be like, Emily? Yes, Grandma.
Yes.
Grandma, I need help. I was on spring break in Mexico, and I got arrested.
Well,
I need $500 So and they'll release me, but please don't tell mom and dad.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So what happens
That's
is
scary.
It is. So you send the money, and then I'll call back 3 days later, and I'll say, Grandma, they said they didn't get the money.
Oh, no.
I need you to send another $500. And it just keeps going until the money's gone or until you figure out that it's a scam. But how often do grandparents not know where their grandchildren are on spring break?
Well,
I mean, in reality.
Yeah, I know.
They
But
know they're going to Florida.
of
but,
course,
you know.
they're going to the beach,
Right.
that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, is there something mentally wrong with the grandparent who thinks this really is their grandchild calling?
No, and I think that's a good point that you make, because I've used the term criminals because these are professional scammers. So they know strategies to manipulate what would be a very normal response to say, "Oh yes, Emily." They are doing that in an effort to target the senior, and frankly, they're targeting people across the lifespan. So this isn't just 65 and older, and so these scam strategies are very well thought through. Which is part of the reason why this is such a difficult thing to combat.
I'm just thinking this has got to be extremely stressful to try to get something to be right with a senior that's in this area. We're talking about scamming. Seems like the telephone is a real hot place right now.
Yes, it is. We've seen a lot of people just call. The yes, I think one of the new ones is the yes, when they're trying to get you to say yes. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. And then they, manipulate that conversation,
Oh, my.
and in order to gain access to get things off of your credit card or some other accounts that you may have. So,
That's scary, isn't it?
It's very scary, and I think the other alarming thing is that oftentimes people think about financial fraud as if they're going to be exploited for thousands and thousands of dollars, but people get exploited for $5 or $10 or
my.
$25 at a time.
Right.
So it may be a call where it says, "Oh, if you invest in this, or for $10 a month, we will send you whatever the item may be." So that $10, then you might say, well, one time $10, and then that turns into those kind of pyramid scheme-like scams. And so on a monthly bank statement, someone might not notice $10 or $15 here and there. It's not necessarily always big dollar amounts of
Correct.
500, 1,000 and more. So it's again, a very complex problem, which is why we're talking about it and kind of getting people to think about it. One thing that we know is that seniors who are scammed don't necessarily talk about it, so there may be
No, would
someone
be
else.
embarrassed to
That's
say that
right. It's
somebody
very
got your money.
embarrassing.
And to help put that in perspective, as Catherine was saying, $5 or $10 here a month may not seem like much to anyone else. It may just seem like a regular withdrawal paying on a regular monthly bill. Well, in the reality of it, let's flip it. And if you think about $10 a day, and a scammer has called 100 people and gotten $10.
Oh, from
So we
each
do the
person.
math, and that's $1,000 just on that one scammer. And a lot of times, it's 20 of them sitting in a room with phones. So
Calling
they've
people.
just made, $200,000.
That's incredible.
Right,
That's
in a
just-
day,
It's
in a
not
day.
something I ever thought of.
Right.
I understand elder abuse and those kind of problems, but I didn't realize it's so simple and
So simple.
easy.
And and we use, we'll use an example like that to help really bring it into perspective on how easy it really is. And like Catherine said, it does not have to be for a whole lot of money in one shot.
Okay.
once they gain access to your accounts, well, the sky's the limit for them. They can just
Oh,
keep
my.
on and on and on.
Oh, that's frightening. What about today's high technology? Is that working against your seniors?
Definitely, and for two reasons. One is that we have a generation now that's growing up that, I have a 3-year-old who knows how to work a smartphone.
Oh, my.
So when we have folks who can manipulate technology really well, it makes people much more vulnerable. The second part of that is that it's very easy to use VPN or this special technology where you can input a number. So it may be a number that you recognize. It may be, oh, I don't know such and such number, but I do know somebody who lives in Charlotte. So they scam the actual phone number, and so they utilize technology to pivot people into maybe thinking that, well, I could know somebody from Montana because I
Right.
was there on vacation last
no.
month. So they're very tricky in those efforts, and technology has made it easier. The other component of that is with the use of technology, it makes it a lot harder to hold these criminals accountable because they could be in Jamaica, Nigeria, jurisdictional issues, which law enforcement can certainly speak more to.
Exactly. It's very hard to track them, and once we're able to even locate them, so as she said, it's a jurisdictional issue. There's the best we can hope for at one point is that the victim is able just to recuperate their money from
Now,
their bank.
we're talking about scams where seniors lose their money, so to speak, or lose a large chunk of it. What about abuse? What kind of abuse are we talking about? Just jump right in.
Okay.
All right.
You're-
Well, what I've been seeing, we don't get so much abuse causing physical, but more along the lines of neglect. A lot of caretaker neglect, and then some self-neglect because, like I said before, no one wants to leave their home, but they cannot provide for themselves. They're not taking their medicine. You know, the house is not sanitary. We just see so much of that, and with the person thinking, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
They all say
but
that, don't they?
They always, but they cannot do that. And a lot of times we don't know anything about it until maybe a doctor maybe orders someone from home health to go into the home to actually give them some care. And when they go in, they're like, you know, oh my goodness, you know,
So
how
a
has
doctor
this person's been functioning?
recognizes that, are you saying?
Sometimes the doctor, you know, will order, say, some home health services, some therapy, or anything that gets someone else into the home. Because prior to that, we won't know what's going on going in the home. Because I'm not going to admit that I cannot care for myself. You know,
Oh,
but the
come
you know,
on
coming
now.
from
But I know
my
you're-
doctor's
I know you're
appointment,
true.
yeah, my
You're
doctor
telling the
like,
truth
you
about
know,
that,
maybe
yeah.
you need some therapy. And so once someone else gets into the home, they're seeing what's actually going on. You know, and the same thing with the caretaker neglect. They're kind of isolating, you know, the adult from, you know, everyone else. We get calls all the time where, you know, my brother, you know, is over my mom and they won't let anyone else in the house. We don't know what's going on. You know, so we get that, you know, we don't think she's getting her medicine. You know, I think she has Alzheimer's and we don't know if she's, you know, writing off, you know, checks to this other family member. So we see a lot of that.
And so you all, the three of you, deal with this all the time. Doesn't it make you just furious?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would certainly say yes to that, and I think so what that has done in our Elder Justice Committee has been really fertile ground for conversations like we're having today, and really helping us to develop some strategies around how to help seniors, because all of our goal, and we didn't say this before we were on camera, but you know, we all share backgrounds where we have a love for people who we want them to live safely in their home and be as independent as they choose to be for as long as they can be. And so it's easy to get fired up for making sure our seniors are safe.
Well, you know, I want to find out more about how you get them to ask for help. If I'm a senior living alone and got some difficulties in any way, how do I ask you for help? But hold on just a minute. We're going to take a quick break. It's just incredible to me how many ploys and scams there are taking advantage of our seniors, me being a senior myself. Every one of us probably have a family member who is vulnerable, so you'll have to stay with us after the break when we share ways to protect our elderly loved ones from falling victims to these crimes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Building Bridges, a monthly show that brings together police and community members to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Now, before the break, Detective Irvin, Miss Wright, and Miss Johnson told us about an alarming number of ways heartless people can take advantage of our senior citizens. But with some knowledge, a few simple acts, and a couple of pieces of equipment, our seniors can be a lot safer. Let's dive right in now, and I want to know more about the kinds of things seniors can do to protect themselves.
So there's a variety of things. Actually, we have a top 10 list
great.
that we normally talk about, and I'll let some of my colleagues share. But the first things that come to mind are making sure that you always have a second line of defense at your front door. So doorstep callers and people coming knocking on your front door. Do you have a screen door with a lock plus a secondary lock? We know that criminals look to see when people are home alone, and they take advantage of that. So a second line of defense is always a good one, and the second component of that second line of defense is having someone else that you trust that can have access to view your financial records, not change anything, not manipulate any money or move money, but just have someone else that can say, let me be that extra set of eyes to make sure we can help keep one another safe. I don't know. There's
I would
plenty.
say
Yeah,
keep
sure.
your, especially like your debit cards, your credit cards, keep them in a safe place. You know, don't leave them out for anyone to just write them down. Be really cautious when you're out in public and handling your credit cards, even getting receipts. Even though now they just have the last four, they still last four digits. Still seem like they're able to get some information, you know, off of those receipts. So be mindful of how you discard those receipts. Yeah.
But there are a couple more are, don't leave your mail in your mailbox, because it's really easy for someone just walking down the sidewalk to open your mailbox, and if the mail has been delivered and you have a credit card application in the mail, well, there's an opportunity for someone to fraudulently get a card in your name. Secondly, if you're mailing a letter from your home, don't leave it in the mailbox with the flag up. Learn the schedule of the mailman and see if you can better coordinate with them to give the mail directly to them or drop it by the post office yourself. You also want to have a shredder. This is one of our favorites.
I'd like hearing that.
Have a shredder in your home and even shred those credit card applications. You know, and anything that comes in with your name on it, shred it. You know, because it's the safest thing to do.
And we've had examples, excuse me,
No,
but
go right ahead.
examples of folks where scammers can just use a magazine that you get in the mail, and just that enough information from the back of a magazine can kind of start that cycle of being scammed. And one we didn't say but must be said, you will never win the Canadian lottery.
Never.
So,
We're so
no
sorry.
matter how
sorry.
opportunistic you may be, or the Jamaican lottery, or the Nigerian lottery.
Or anybody's lottery.
That's right. And those mail lottery scams are a real common scam that starts out $5, $10 at a time, but people get exploited for a lot of money. So you will unfortunately never win the Canadian lottery.
Oh, well.
And someone come into your home, say for instance, cutting down that tree or whatever, you may want to call the Better Business Bureau to see if they are a reputable company
I see.
before you just hand over money and expect them to come back, you know, because a lot of them, well, I need some upfront money.
Oh,
Right.
You know, call the Better Business Bureau or even your local police to see if they're
Correct.
aware of any scams that are going on.
Oh, my.
And there's nothing wrong with calling, if I can add to that, to call the police and we can come out there and check. You know, patrol officer can just ride out, talk to the guy, talk to, you know, whoever the home resident is, and see if something can be figured out from there. There's nothing wrong with a phone call.
So would you be willing to come to a house and look around and say, yeah, well, you need to do something about those windows, or you need to make sure this alarm is on? In other words, do you have the capability of helping someone decide what's good and bad about their house?
Actually, we do. A lot of our patrol officers do that anyway when they're responding to calls in family homes, whether the house has been burglarized or whether the home they're responding to a false burglar alarm. Most of our patrol officers will do that anyway. But we do have programs within the Greensboro Police Department that people can call the city line, the city telephone number, to get through to the police department, and they can ask for a detective or a member of our neighborhood response unit to come out and help them evaluate their home to ensure and to increase their safety.
Well, that's, I guess, the key thing. I've known of seniors who kind of imagine things. I mean, maybe if they have Alzheimer's or dementia or something, they'll think somebody's coming or somebody's doing.
Right.
Do you ever work to try to settle them down some?
Yes, so that's very common. If someone has onset of Alzheimer's or dementia, they may, it's not uncommon for someone to think they've been sexually abused or had someone come into their window. We've heard that story. Someone came into my window last night and got me or hurt me. And so I think that's where services through the Family Justice Center and our varied partners with APS and GPD and some other partners on site, that sense of safety is really important, even if for someone who maybe nothing did happen to them, but they feel unsafe, we want to talk to them about safety mechanisms that they can that can happen in the home. And you know, we've given examples, but one of the things we've talked some about is caregivers can also be the people that commit these crimes. And so when we think
And
about
that's
violence
sad
and
to hear.
abuse,
Yeah.
Right.
we think about locking it out, but sometimes when that doorknob turns, we're locking it in. And so just being mindful of there are resources and supports for helping people who are both folks trying to get in, but also folks that are living within the home.
So what can a senior citizen do, let's say, if they are being abused and nobody knows it except maybe the caregiver or something like that? Do they call you? Or?
Tell anyone. Yes, they can call us, and I think we'll be giving out that number. But they can call Adult Protective Services. They can call the Family Justice Center. Tell a friend. Tell your pastor. Tell anyone. You know, if you're afraid to call yourself, get someone else to call. You know, and they can give us enough information, and we can go out to doing at least an evaluation to see what's going on.
And many of our early opportunities for intervention come from a senior disclosing to a church member or a neighbor or a friend, or a neighbor coming in the house and seeing mounds of mail and saying, hey, what's going on? And then together jointly calling the police or jointly seeking out resources and support.
But seniors fight against that sometimes, don't they? They don't want you to know or anybody to know what's happening with them.
Right, but sometimes we get calls anyway from neighbors. And so I don't know who else to call, but I just know that something is wrong. You know, my friend used to do this. She used to go out. She used to, you know, we used to play bingo. Now she just stays in the house. She acts like she's confused. She doesn't even dress up like she used to dress up.
Right.
So just different things like that. You know, be aware, you know, of your neighbors and your friends. And if you see something that's totally changed about them, give us a call.
So maybe it's just not the responsibility of that person and someone around
Exactly.
them. It could be somebody who lives down the block and seeing something. Tell me again the name of your organization.
I'm with Department of Social Services, Health and Human Services.
Okay,
And I'm
and-
with Adult Protective Services.
All right, and yours?
The Guilford County Family Justice Center.
And
Detective with Greensboro Police Department, Family Victims Unit.
so if a senior is watching this show right now and saying, I really want to tell somebody about some things that happened to me, do they call one of you, all of you? How does that work?
So the best pathway is for them to call the Family Justice Center, and that's 641-SAFE, and I know that information will be on at the end of the program. Our staff can help coordinate who they need to speak to first. So that might be a referral to APS or Greensboro Police Department or an elder abuse advocate who specializes in working with aging adults. And people have a choice if they want to go the criminal route or if they just need support.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Just
one of the
somebody to
reasons why
talk
people
to.
don't want to report is they think, oh, I might have to go to court or involve jail. That is their choice. So we can create a confidential place to have a conversation and help people determine which pathway.
That sounds great because a lot of people are afraid of the retaliation if they tell it. You know,
And that's the same for friends and neighbors and caregivers as well. So if they could have some concern about a loved one, they can call and we can kind of help them navigate the various systems put in place to support them.
And with Adult Protective Services, we never divulge the reporter. So the reporter can feel safe about calling, you know, letting us know what's going on, and their name and information is not given out.
and we've talked about scams, we've talked about abuse. Anything we've left out?
No, I mean there's there's you know we know that we have three types of abuse. We have physical, we have emotional, and we have mental abuse. You know, and neglect can fall into those. You know, and as Carol said earlier, it may not be someone else not providing care for it. May be that person themselves not able to do it but don't want to admit it.
Right.
And then of course we do have the financial aspect of all of it against seniors. So it's you know, it just seems to be continuing to grow, like we said earlier, with the more technology and our seniors not being as technological savvy as our crooks are. It's easier for them to navigate and get the information that they want to obtain the money.
I find technology to be frightening because when I think back over the years when I was a child at home with my grandmother and mother, they didn't have to worry about something. I mean, they had other things to worry about, but they didn't worry about somebody calling about the computer or somebody calling on the phone asking for money or clothes or whatever. Do you think what you're dealing with is slowing down or is it getting worse?
Unfortunately, I think it's on the rise. We've seen a 28% increase a year to reports to Adult Protective Services, reports to Greensboro Police Department on the rise. The oldest client that's been into the Family Justice Center for help is 97 years old.
Oh my goodness.
We have, about 10% of the folks we're serving fall over that 65-year-old criteria, and that could be that they're being abused by a grandchild. It doesn't just have to be in a parental capacity or in a caregiver capacity. But I also think that in addition to that, we're talking about it more as a community, so the more awareness that we have, the more likelihood we're going to have for reports. And really our effort is we want to provide a good coordinated response, but we also want to begin to implement some strategies throughout the community that can prevent these crimes from happening, because there is some component that we can all take some responsibility for, both protecting ourselves but also protecting those that we care for.
So are we looking at a situation that has become more in the light these days than it might have been 20, 30 years ago?
I would say we are. And again, that goes hand in hand with society and the evolution of TV, radio, cell phones, computers, and all of that. We're seeing the increase, whereas before it may still have been there 20, 30 years ago,
Yes.
but it just wasn't as known, because now you push a button on your phone and you get instant results. We didn't have that 20, 30 years ago.
No, we didn't.
No.
And everybody has a cell phone.
Right.
It's just so easy. I know our reports have really increased. When I first started here 12 years ago in Guilford County, we had 3 workers that would go out into the home. One person take the reports on the phone. Now we've doubled. We have 2 people doing the intake, taking reports, and 6 people going out. So that tells you there's been a great increase in Guilford.
And financial exploitation to seniors is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So when we look at it at a national scope, and there's a lot of work happening in the national arena around reducing elder abuse and supporting seniors and talking about financial exploitation and abuse within the home. We know this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And again, goes back to that someone we talked about earlier, just so underreported.
That's frightening. I certainly hope that our viewers today are listening to the things that you're offering, because the purpose of this show, Building Bridges, is to reach out to the community and the police department and other social agencies and bring it all together so we can develop a healthy, safe life, instead of it being like it is now. Any plans in your department to come up with some more ways to help?
We're continuing right now with doing research and trying to get out to the community to educate seniors, whether it be at centers or churches, excuse me, or any other type of clubs that seniors may have. Go out and educate them. I continue to try to obtain stats from our fraud department, and we have another unit within the investigative division that also sometimes investigates physical abuse against seniors. So we try to stay on top of the statistics that we're getting and make sure that everything is being reported accurately so that we have the exact information we need to better educate the community and the seniors within.
This all sounds wonderful and scary. Which one do you pick?
Right, both, right?
Right.
One of the initiatives that we are working on, we launched last month and we'll be launching and programming throughout the next year, is really a collaborative that our Elder Justice Committee did called Friends Against Fraud. And we took the statistics from the police department and statistics from ARP and statistics from APS and all of our various partners and developed a 1-hour certification course that seniors and caregivers can take. They'll learn about common frauds and scams. They'll take a pledge to, number one, protect themselves, but also care for others. And they get certified in our program. And so our goal as a collaborative over the next few months, and kind of taking what all these various departments were doing and saying, let's create one package, let's promote this throughout our community, and really create a community that has awareness and education and the tools they need to prevent fraud and become a friend against fraud.
So that's what it's called, Friends Against Fraud?
Yep.
Goodness.
So that's been a really exciting opportunity. We've piloted it a couple of times. It's gone very well. We've received great feedback. And it's really a train-the-trainer model. So our goal is that as seniors come forward, and they've done this at the presentations that we've done, this happened to me, let me tell you my story. We're taking those stories and infiltrating that into what we're sharing with the community and kind of trying to destigmatize this issue and also normalize it and develop a we around how we're going to solve this issue.
Well, I would imagine that just knowing that somebody else is facing the same thing I'm facing something
Right.
that helps people come to you, right?
Yes, it does. It allows you to be more open about, what's going on with you. If man, I thought this was just happening to me.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
find out, you're not, not the only one that it's going on with. So, it makes you feel a little more open, a little bit more secure, and so we found that that's been a great asset because people have been more open when they found out that Emily is going through the same thing I'm going through.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's almost like okay,
I'm
give
more
it.
willing to share.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. That's right.
As long as nobody feels alone, and that's part of what our presentation does with Friends Against Fraud is not only do we certify them, but we give them material to take home as well, so they can help educate them, their neighbors and any friends or family that may be around. But one of our biggest points is, you're not the only one that this has happened to or it is happening to. And one thing that we always like to say when we're giving the presentation is, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, and trust your gut. I mean, you've come so far, you've worked, you've raised a family, you're able to maintain your home and whatever, and you've always trusted your gut throughout your entire life. Why abandon it now?
That's right.
Because
That's right.
it's helped you in the past. So, too good to be true, it is, and
It can be scary.
Yes,
I'll tell
ma'am.
you the truth, it certainly can. And I certainly hope that you have given us enough information so that seniors who are watching us today, and not just seniors, but their families and friends and all of those will know that this is not acceptable without getting some help for it.
right.
This is wonderful. Thank you all for coming today. Don't go. We'll talk a little more. Ms. Wright and Ms. Johnson and Detective Irving, you certainly have opened my eyes to a lot of things that can happen to seniors. Even though I've gone through mothers, grandmothers, and all that, you don't think about it the way that you guys are thinking about it. You at home also have a role, a big role in protecting your aging family members. Talk to them about what you've learned on this episode of Building Bridges. And if you need more information, contact the caring people at the Guilford County Family Justice Center. Thanks for watching us, and until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes. Be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.